There is a scene near the end of Whiplash where, on the surface, nothing happens. A quiet bar, late at night. Two men, a drink, no band to conduct, and no room to terrify. It looks like the one moment in the whole film where Terence Fletcher wants nothing from anyone, and it is the only time he tells the truth. He even warns you it's coming. He says the truth is, and for once, what follows is a confession. So why would a man who lies this well tell the truth even once? I'm going to line up every major lie this master manipulator tells in order and show you why his one honest sentence is buried inside his cruelest lie. Fletcher's first lie is about a time. He pulls Andrew out of Nassau Band and tells him room B16, 6 in the morning. Rehearsal starts at 9. Andrew runs across campus, finds an empty room, checks the schedule on the door, and then sits at the kit for 3 hours, waiting for a class he was never going to be late for. I keep coming back to this one, because it's the only lie in the film with no cover story available. He can't call it a test, since there's nothing to pass. It teaches nothing about tempo. Neither of them ever mentions it again, and if you cut it, the plot doesn't move an inch. So the only question left is what a man has to believe for it to be worth doing at all. He has to think a tired 19-year-old shows you something a rested one keeps hidden. It's a theory about where talent lives, and he's about to spend the next 90 minutes acting on it. The second lie lasts about 90 seconds, and Fletcher corrects it himself. Someone in the band is out of tune. He stops everything and gives the player a chance to own up. Nobody moves. So he works through the sections, listening, and stops on a trombonist, overweight, nervous, the kind of man who's been picked on since he was a child. He makes him play. Then he leans in and asks him quietly,
"Do you think you're out of tune?"
The man says yes. He isn't, and Fletcher knows he isn't. He throws him out anyway and waits for the door to close. Then he tells the room the truth. That wasn't the guy. Somebody else was out of tune, but this one didn't know it, and that was enough. Notice how short the lie is. It lasts one man's walk to the door and not a second longer, and Fletcher gives it up on his own to a room of 19 people. Whatever he's protecting, it isn't himself. He's staging something, and the staging needs a body. So, what does he have to believe for that to be worth a man's career? Metz is what he's teaching with, and there's a rule inside the lesson. The crime was never the wrong note. The crime was not hearing it. Being in tune that day doesn't save you. Add that to what he already believes. Talent shows up under strain, and it knows when it's wrong. The third lie is 4 words long.
Don't worry about the numbers.
He says it in the hallway after Metz, with an arm around Andrew's shoulders. He asks what the parents do. The father is a writer, Andrew says, then corrects himself before Fletcher has to. He teaches at a high school. The mother left when Andrew was a baby. Then Fletcher hands him Charlie Parker. Joe Jones threw a cymbal at his head, and that is how Bird was born. You're here for a reason. Say it out loud.
I'm here for a reason.
3 minutes later, Fletcher throws a chair at his head. I don't read that as temper. He has just finished telling a story about an object thrown at a young musician's head, and then he throws an object at a young musician's head. He is doing Joe Jones. He cast the part in the hallway, and he cast himself in it, which changes what the chair is for. A man who loses control doesn't brief you first. Fletcher briefs you first. He makes sure Andrew has the story, makes sure Andrew has said the line about being here for a reason, and only then picks up the chair. The tempo is the occasion. The story is the point. And that gives us the second half of what he believes. Pressure has to be understood by the person it lands on. Unexplained, it produces a kid who quits and tells his father about it. Explained first, it produces a kid who goes home and practices until his hands bleed. So, the frame gets handed over before anything is applied, and the student has to say yes to it out loud. He uses the family too, minutes later, in front of the whole band. That one is just cruelty, and cruelty is cheap. The Parker story is the expensive part. The fourth lie is the only one he tells with tears in his eyes. He comes into the room quiet for once and tells the band that a former student of his has died in a car accident. Sean Casey, a beautiful player, he says, and then he has to stop. Then he wipes his face and says they're going to play. It wasn't a car accident. Andrew finds that out much later, over a table in a bar with his father and a lawyer, along with the part that matters more. The anxiety and the depression started while Casey was in Fletcher's band. Fletcher had a choice about how much to say, and every option available to him was easier than the one he took. He could have said nothing. He could have said Casey died and left it there. Instead, he invented a specific, unrelated accident. Nobody was going to be kept from that death. Everyone in the room would have found out anyway. He's replacing one story with another because the true one has him in it. And then he uses the fake one. He cries about a student whose anxiety and depression started in that room, in front of the students who are still sitting in it. Then he keeps 3 drummers there all night, taking turns at the kit until they're raw, and the mood he just created is what lets him do it. So there's the 4th thing he believes, and it's the ugliest. The method has never produced a result he can point to. It has produced one he has to explain away. Months later, Andrew finds him playing piano in a jazz club. Fletcher lost his job too. He buys Andrew a drink and lays the whole method out, unprompted, to a 19-year-old who doesn't play anymore. Everything he says about himself and about what he does in those rooms, that's what we've been counting. By the end of this scene, one of those sentences will be true. The speech itself holds no surprises. We assembled it out of 4 lies before he opened his mouth. What's new is that for the first time, he has to justify it, and that means producing evidence. He produces one thing, the Parker story, the same story he handed Andrew in the hallway 3 minutes before the chair. That's the case. That's all of it. An anecdote about a drummer he never met, from decades before he was born, and it isn't even about teaching. A young musician gets humiliated by a colleague at a gig and goes home and practices. There's no teacher in it. It's the story of a man who happened to react a particular way to being embarrassed in public, and it's being used as the theoretical basis of a career. Which is strange coming from him. This is the man who threw a trombonist out for failing to hear his own mistake. Who wouldn't name a tempo and hit a kid for missing it? Prove it, find it, show me. That's his standard, applied to everyone in the room except the man at the front. And nobody ever asks him for a better one. Andrew takes the story the way he took it in the hallway. What Andrew does ask is something else. Is there a line? He says. Could you push somebody so hard that you put out the next Charlie Parker before anyone ever hears him? It's the only time in the film that anyone asks him, to his face, whether the method can fail. Andrew probably doesn't hear his own question that way. He's talking to a man he still admires in a bar, and he's being careful about it. But that is what he's asking for. Give me the case where this doesn't work, and Fletcher has an answer ready. Fletcher answers him and says no, and then he explains why.
Because the next Charlie Parker would never be discouraged.
Sit with that for a second, because it's the most important sentence he says in the film besides the one that follows it. He has just made the method impossible to fail. If a student breaks, that proves the student wasn't the one. If a student survives, that proves the method. Every outcome confirms him. Nothing can be brought to him as evidence because whatever you name, someone who quit, someone who died, the reply is already waiting. That one wasn't it either. And that's a standard he has never once accepted from himself. Metz had to hear his own mistake or get out. Andrew had to find a tempo nobody would name. Everybody in that building had to prove it. Here he is at a piano, telling a boy he damaged that his own work is the one thing that can't be checked. Then, in the same breath, without being asked, he checks it.
The truth is, Andrew, I never really had a Charlie Parker.
Look at what he's just conceded. This is a career. He threw students out. He kept the ones who bled. All of it was for one thing, to produce one person. That was the justification he gave 30 seconds ago, and it never happened. He says so out loud, in a bar, to a 19-year-old, with nothing forcing him to. That is the true thing. That's the sentence. And what separates it from everything else in his mouth is simple. It's the only one that costs him something. The rest buy him a room, a reputation, a drummer. This one gives something away. Then he closes it. He tried, he says, and he won't apologize for how he tried. He rules out the possibility of being wrong. He supplies the proof that he was, and then he tells you it changes nothing. Because if the result was ever the point, that admission would land on him like a building. A man whose method produced nobody would have to stop or bend or at least go quiet for a minute. Nothing like that happens. Andrew says yeah. Fletcher doesn't take it back or soften it, and the scene ends there. The film gives the sentence nowhere to go. I don't read any of this as the film dodging the hard question. I think the hard question is somewhere else. Whether cruelty produces genius is an argument people can have forever. Both sides keep their examples. Nobody moves, and the film knows it. What a man does once he already knows it hasn't worked, that one has an answer. We just watched him give it. The obvious objection is that the confession was part of the pitch. And it holds. A minute later, out on the pavement, he asks Andrew to come and play at the festival. Everything said in that bar was clearing the road for the invitation, including the true sentence. It's a recruitment, and Andrew agrees to it the same way he agreed in the hallway. But that doesn't make the sentence a lie. It makes it the most expensive thing in the pitch. He had cheaper options. Any working former student, named out loud, would have sold Andrew just as well and cost him nothing. Instead, he handed over the one fact that undercuts everything he just argued for. Andrew says yes to the festival, and on stage, before a note is played, Fletcher tells him he knows about the testimony. Then he starts the band on a piece Andrew has never seen. The invitation was the trap. The bar, the drink, the confession, all of it was walking a boy onto a stage to be destroyed in front of people who matter. And it works on him, which is the part I find hardest. Go back a few weeks. Andrew is at a family dinner, defending his life against a table that thinks drumming is a hobby, and the case he makes is the cymbal story. Fletcher's story, in Fletcher's shape, in a room Fletcher will never enter. His father answers with the part Fletcher leaves out. Parker died broke at 34. Andrew hears the price and says he'd take it. 19 years old, agreeing to die early for a result the man selling it already knows never arrives. This is what I keep landing on. Fletcher can name his own failure. He gets all the way to the sentence, "I never got there," and the next thing he says is that he won't apologize for it. That isn't stubbornness in the ordinary sense. It's a mind that can see the error and has nothing to do with it. Doing something would mean the error had a cost, and he stopped counting costs a long time ago. So why does a man who lies this well tell the truth even once? Because by then, it was cheap. He had already built a method that nothing could disprove. Once you've done that, the proof stops mattering, and you can hand it to a boy in a bar like it's small talk. Whatever he was doing in those rooms, it was never waiting on a result. He told the truth exactly once, and it was the cheapest thing he said all night. Thank you for watching.